Hi, I'm Jeff Murrow. I want to welcome you to True Texas History, where today we are going to talk about the Runaway Scrape. This is one of those episodes that history books often touch on, but they don't go into a lot of detail. And as I have studied it and dug a little deeper, I have seen that it's of much more significance than I used to think. Okay, to go ahead and put it in context, starting in the first part of 1836, as Santa Anna's armies were approaching into Texas, many of the settlers down there around the Corpus Christi, modern day Corpus Christi area, San Patricio, and so forth, they started retreating, because living out there, they had a feel for what was going on. They could sense that things weren't going good, and they went ahead and started pulling back. In my, that's some historians attribute that as the start of the Runaway Scrape. I tend to see the official one as more so when Houston and his army left Gonzales. Now, when they left Gonzales, they told people that they would need to pack up and leave quickly. In fact, emphasis on leave. I like the quote that he said to Ben Duncan, time and tide wait on no man, Ben, to let him know how quickly things needed to move. And he was the ferryman. They had to burn the ferry, they burned the town. People loaded up what they could on the wagons and they took off. Because keep in mind, many of these people sold their businesses, left behind just about everything in their lives. They come to Texas, try to carve out a home, and now they're having to give it up. And I had often wondered, why did they leave and freak out? I mean, they had the assurances from the Mexican government that they wouldn't be harmed, right? Assurances from central government doesn't do you much good. Because you can often take what the main government says, and the opposite is usually true. In this case, with Mexico, was definitely true. These people were smart enough to look at the facts. They saw back in the year before what Santa Anna's army did to Zacatecas. There was a revolt there, much bigger battle in San Jacinto. I mean, 4,000 on one side, and I don't know how many was on Santa Anna's side. Santa Anna defeated the uprising, and he let his men just burn, steal, rape, pillage to their heart's content. And the people knew this, and they did not want that to happen to themselves. So they had good reason to go. And picture, if you will, loading up your wagon, loading up whatever you could on your back, and taking off. Not sure if you'll ever see home again. Not sure how long you'll be gone. Kids might be crying. Because I know there in Gonzales, just about every household was touched with death. And, figure, if you will, if you were one of those wives, your husband just died, and now you're told you have to move, and you just found out that he passed away. It's hard to fathom the pain. And then, and during the Runaway Scrape, as the army and this massive civilian refugees was traveling through Texas, when you're talking March through April, that's a very rainy time in Texas. And that year was no exception. It rained, many of the rivers were swollen. The roads, keep in mind that these were essentially wagon ruts in the road, and many times it bogged down in the mud. And so those people participating in the Runaway Scrape had to just drop many of their belongings. Even Sam Houston had to drop a cannon or two along the way. And at many of those river crossings, the Brazos and the others, the Colorado and so forth, they dropped their belongings. And, to make matters worse, as they were retreating, running for their lives, you had some opportunists. There's always opportunists that were going around riding up real hard to them. The Mexicans are coming. The Mexicans are on us. And it would freak the people out. The people would drop their belongings and take off. And then these looters would just have a heyday, enjoy themselves. And not only that, traveling through Texas at that time was not a safe proposition anyway. You still had Indian tribes that at several locations along the Runaway Scrape, they found themselves attacked by Indians. So, you had the threat of Indians, you had the threat of Mexican troops coming down upon you, and you're headed for safer lands as quickly as possible. So it was quite an undertaking. Now, in addition to this, by Houston doing this and going through this, I like to call it and think of it as a strategic retreat, because even though he was retreating, his army was remaining intact and picking up more people as he went, which says a lot about his leadership skills, that he was able to keep that together. Some historians have likened the Runaway Scrape to Valley Forge, and I don't think that that's a bad comparison. And I read some accounts that talked about the Runaway Scrape is foundational in shaping the Texas character. That whole mindset of a can-do attitude, and we can carve a home out of the wilderness, and we can handle things. We, on the bumper stickers nowadays, you can kill your own rattlesnakes. This type of mindset, and I can see, make a case for that. But it was a scary time. Now, fortunately, with what happened on the Runaway Scrape and the Army moving pretty regularly, it was hard for Santa Anna to know where he was. And Santa Anna's army literally split into 5 different columns and spread out, hoping to find the Texian army and do it in. And in a few places, some of their people nearly caught up with the settlers and the army, but fortunately we managed to outrun them. And I know I use the word we. What would that be? Great aunt, one of my relatives back there, was actually born at the San Jacinto battlefield after having gone through the Runaway Scrape. So, my relative who was pregnant, my heart goes out to be pregnant and have to undergo those kind of hardships. And I know she was not alone in going through those types of challenges. And that's, it was not convenient, but she did it. That's a type of tenacity that those settlers had. Of course, you had to be able to carve a home out in Texas. Now, while I have you here, I want to challenge you to do something, because I know that during the Runaway Scrape, they were chased by Santa Anna. Have you ever looked up a picture of Santa Anna? I've been amazed when I get online at the variations in how he looked, and I find it fascinating. Some pictures he has a mustache, some pictures he's clean shaven, some pictures he's very dashing, with little fluffs of hair here, almost look like somebody out of a GQ magazine, and others he looks real dumpy. in terms of the real Santa Anna, I tend to lean towards some of the photographs because there were photographs of him taken, so we do have an idea what he looked like. Some of these pictures of him in military uniform, the paintings, I tend to see as being over romanticized and made him look better looking than he was, almost like photoshopping of the 19th century. But I encourage you, go ahead and look at those. I think you'll find it fascinating how you have all these different looks of the same man. You wonder, how is that? Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed going over the Runaway Scrape and that you have a new appreciation of it and the hardships that these people endured from when they left Gonzales in early March until the latter part of April when the Battle of San Jacinto concluded. Because when they returned back home, many of them had no home. I mean, their fears of things being torn up were realized because the Mexican army was destructive in some cases, and in some cases it was the Indians. So they had good reason to fear the Indians and the Mexican army during that time because they were vulnerable, they were weak, and these forces were taking advantage of it. Well, if you have any questions, concerns, feel free to leave them below. I'll be glad to get to them. But until next time, this is Jeff Morrow wishing you Vaya con Dios, my friends. Hope you have a happy St. Patrick's Day, which today it is, March 17th. Vaya con Dios. See you later. Bye.